and welcome to Voices Unhindered. I'm Crystal Jenkinson. On this show, I give a unique perspective and listening ear to voices that often go unheard. I want everyone to know that you are not alone and that your voice and story matters. This week on Voices Unhindered, I have a second part to a two-part episode with my special guest, Sheena Hemens. We go into how the loss of her former restaurant was the first of many losses. Sheena Hemens' world was turned upside down in 2023 when she was forced to close popular Christchurch restaurant, Maison de Crack, followed by the tragic loss of her daughter, Lauren Hemens, to a car accident, and then dealing with a breakup. We talk about how resilience has been a core theme in Sheena Hemens' life. Subscribe now to my Patreon, Voices Unhindered podcast, and YouTube channel, which is in the description below. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, Crystal.
Again. Yeah.
I'm back.
Thank
you for having me back.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really enjoyed our last conversation.
So did I.
Where we kind of left off about business. When did you start your first business? How old were you? And what did you see yourself doing business during your high school years?
Oh my gosh. No, definitely did not envisage seeing doing anything business-wise while I was at school. But then again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was at school. So everything in my life has happened very organically, or I've kind of fallen into things and then just decided to run with it. I didn't have a plan. So my first business happened really almost by accident. I had been working for an investment bank for 4 years. And that was the first job that I actually had after my marriage ended. So my children were young. I started part-time, and then as they got older and more settled at school, I went into full-time. But I loved the job, and it was a really, really good 4 years where I learned a lot about myself, but I knew that I was capable of more. And so as often in many stories, I think you get someone who inspires you or helps you. And for me, that was a client of the bank. I won't mention any names, but she was an amazing woman, very strong, very accomplished and driven, and she knew exactly where she, was heading. And she saw something in me, and she essentially encouraged me to go out on my own, and said that she would be my first client, and that I'd be great, and that she really believed in me. And yeah, I believed her. And so I kind of did. I started what would become essentially a marketing and events agency. But yeah, I ran events for her. I did other kind of project management style work for her. She had a lot of different businesses and properties and different things like that. And it grew from there. And it became what was named the go-to company. And I ran that for 6 years, and did quite a lot of work after the earthquake with Sarah and with the council, and ran a lot of events and ran things like the Master Builders House of the Year for 3 years in a row. And
sorry, just to interrupt. Yeah. Was this back in London? You started?
No, this was here.
This was here
after my breakup. So this was here. This was literally I started the business in 2010. So just before the first earthquake, actually. Yeah.
Wow. In London, I'm really interested to know your girls and your boy. Was he born yet, or were they?
No.
Come with them?
I came over here in 1996, and the girls were not just over a year old. So no, I didn't come here till 96. So I lived in the UK, lived in London, lived in lots of places actually, because my ex-husband was in the British Army. He was an officer in the army.
That's amazing. And so your ex-husband is...
No, he's here. He's here. We all came over together.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Because it was his dream to come here, and he's still here. And, he wanted to come over here. He was in the army. He'd done a thing called Long Look, which anyone listening who knows someone in the New Zealand Army will probably know what that is. It's like an exchange between the British Army and the New Zealand Army. And so he came over and it was based at Burnham. And I say based because I think all he did really was travel and have a great time and see the country and fall in love with it. And then when he came back, he said, I want to go and live there. I really didn't know exactly where New Zealand was or didn't really know anything. I mean, this is 30 years ago we're talking, and I anything other than Shortland Street.
Yeah.
So I remember watching Shortland Street and thinking, this is what it's like.
Like Coronation Street.
A bit like, anyone watching Coronation Street would think that that's what the whole of the UK is like. So, and we came here in 96 and I've been here ever since.
Yeah. And what led you guys to break up?
We're like oil and water. We weren't a couple that argued lots. We didn't have, a really dreadful relationship. We just did not sync well. We didn't. Great parents, and I'm really proud of the job that we did as parents and are doing as parents, but we were just not right for each other for varying reasons, nothing which is either of our faults. But I think any relationship, it's a combination of the childhood that you had, the role models that you had, the way you were brought up, the belief systems that you have. When you mix it with another person who has a completely different set of those things.
Like worldview.
Not even, I'm talking more kind of internal beliefs and belief systems and ways of being. Then you just suddenly find that you're not really that, I suppose I'm talking about compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
That, we were not that compatible and we broke up very amicably. I mean, we did not argue. We hardly used any lawyers. There was no fighting. We wanted it to be for the children. And that's been the way that we've done it. And now that the kids are older, I've talked to them about the breakup and they say that, you did it really well. There was nothing that we feel traumatized us.
That's quite unusual because usually,
so I've
fighting.
Heard. And I think that must be so hard. One thing that I say, and I don't know if this would help anyone going through this, but we always said that we went from being married to having a business, and the business was the children. And so we continuing after we separated to relate to each other and to treat each other in a way that would be in the best interests of the children, just like you would if you had a business. You would do everything that would be in the business's best interests, and that's how we did it. We tried to make sure that they were not affected. It'd be wonderful, wouldn't it, to know that any people breaking up who have kids can do that. But I know it's not always within our power. So I feel very grateful.
It was very uncivil it was very violent. And,
oh, God.
Hence why I grew up with my grandparents, mainly because of the dysfunction between my own parents. There was alcohol involved and there was drugs.
Oh, that would have been so hard.
So, yeah.
You're lucky you had your grandparents.
Exactly. I think could have ended up in state care if it wasn't for them. That's how bad it was. They were kind of like my rescuers. I wanted to ask, how did you realize that your motivation to be successful in business, more recently, came from your desire to prove your value to others? And why do you think that you had to prove yourself through your achievements?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I think I said that in the last one, that I definitely felt like I had something to prove. Look, I think we all have insecurities. We all have these parts of ourselves that we potentially are either, in some cases, I don't think this is in my case, but embarrassed of. But I do think there are things that we don't like about either where we've come from or how we are, and that we want to change them. And the way that we choose to change them can be in a lot of different ways. And for me, it initially was through having a family and being the best parent that I could be. But then when it came to business, I felt that I had to overcome the fact that I felt like nobody in my family had been successful, that I wanted to prove to people that, I didn't do particularly well at school and didn't, get great qualifications. And
But you got A's at high school, right, for your writing?
Well, I did, but then I was convinced by my parents that writing would end up with me living in a cardboard box. So I was told I had to do science and chemistry and physics, which I failed miserably because, you know, you can't be successful at something that you hate.
Exactly.
So I didn't do that well. And so I think that I really wanted to prove that I had a brain, that I was able to be successful. And it kind of manifests itself in this desire to be successful in business. I wanted to have that respect. I wanted to have the acknowledgement. And this is one thing that has changed a lot about me since Lauren's death, is that, you know, I kind of felt I wanted the status of being a successful person. I liked all of the accoutrements of success, all of the ways, you know, that you had a nice car and a nice home and fancy clothes and designer labels and all of that.
Did you grow up with that?
No, that's the whole point. I came from an incredibly poor family.
Even though your mum was like in a higher caste, she still didn't come with
no, because she left left all of that behind and went to London with pretty much nothing.
And like she wasn't getting any like money or anything.
No, they pretty much disowned her because
I wanted to
understand. So no, I grew up with very little, and you know, with my father being an alcoholic, he lost his job all the time, and you know, it was a simple childhood in terms of financial success. So I really aspired to that. That's the word I will use. I had aspirations of pulling myself out of what I felt was that kind of not impoverished. That sounds a little bit dramatic because we were never impoverished. We always had a place to live and pay, food on the table, but just that very basic life. And I wanted more.
Yeah.
And I thought that I could get that through business success and work very hard. And, you know, the thing was I was successful, but none of it actually made me any happier. None of it ever made me feel fully enough.
How would you describe it made you feel when you became like quite successful in your businesses? How would you feel the feeling? Like, how would you describe the feeling?
Well, it was great and it was fun. And I had, I had nice clothes, and I think people would look at me and see someone who was successful, which is, I think, what I wanted, or at least that's what I thought I wanted. Actually, when everything gets taken away from you, in my situation, I started to really understand what was truly important in life, and it wasn't all of that. It was like I'd worked so hard my whole life chasing all this stuff, all this material things, I guess. I was very materialistic, and when it all went and I had nothing, and literally every single pillar of my life fell over, I don't know, I just realized actually none of that means anything. It's all of those other things, those intangible things, those are the things that truly mean happiness.
It's beautiful, yeah.
And it doesn't mean I didn't have fun starting business. I loved it, and I loved the work that I did, the people that I met. There's nothing more fun and exciting than having an event that's got 1,000 people, setting up the room, making sure everything runs smoothly, seeing everybody happy and having a good time, and the client being really happy at the end of it. Everything that I did, including the restaurant, was really about creating things that made people happy, other people happy. I loved to do that. I loved to be the hostess, the kind of person that made things happen, got things done. But underneath it all was this need, actually, I would say, to have other people, respect and admire me. And I think that just came from having nothing when I was young. It came from just feeling like I was not enough. I know I'm not beating myself up about it, but I did. I used to when I was a lot younger.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your parents. When they left Sri Lanka, did they kind of carry, like you said, they kind of blended into the culture in London?
Well, they sort of.
Yeah. Did you learn much about your extended family? Did your mum talk about, they've kind of disowned me, something like that?
It's quite complicated, my childhood and my memories of my childhood. And I don't have an awful lot of memories of my childhood and what that means. But I do remember just not really knowing much about their backgrounds. There were snippets, and you know how when you get together with your family and maybe extended family or friends at a dinner table and people will tell stories. I remember the same, it's always the same stories, isn't it? We always roll our eyes because our parents or grandparents tell the same stories every time. So there are certain stories that I remember. I remember them talking about when they came to England and they drove a Model T Ford, apparently, from London to Sri Lanka and Colombo, or maybe it was the other way around. I can't actually even remember. But they told all these crazy stories about trips they'd had and places they'd been to and memories. And I don't know which ones are real, which ones are kind of made up, because there were so many gaps in the story. And I'm currently putting together a memoir of sorts, and there's parts of this story there's so many holes I can't fill at the moment, in terms of there's nobody who can
confirm something.
Yeah, I mean, my mum is 96 and has dementia and really does not remember anything, which is sad.
Is she back in London?
No, she's here.
Oh, wow.
She's here in a retirement home, and she doesn't remember. I can't really ask her about anything. And if I do ask her, she'll get very confused, as people with dementia often do. So we just don't. My father died many years ago, so he's not around. I don't really have any other family to ask. But it's intriguing to me to try and piece together the puzzle, the jigsaw of their lives, my lives, because it just doesn't. Some of it doesn't make sense. And I don't want to repeat myself on last time, but I was actually telling my partner the other day that that my grandmother, my mother's mother, which was normal of the day in Sri Lanka. We've got to remember, please, that this is in the day and back in the day, many years ago in Sri Lanka. She was 13 when she got married, and her husband, my grandfather, was in his 30s.
Yeah.
I mean,
scandalous.
It's really just wrong on many levels, but that was just how things were back then. But then that makes what happened with my mum really quite strange, because my mum was not married until she was 30. And I'm sure that back in those days that would have been quite
late.
So, and I don't know why. I don't know why that was the case. And I'm not saying I wanted her to get married at 14 or something, but for girls to be married before the age of 20 was not uncommon. When you read, I've read some historical things about Sri Lanka at that time. Yeah, that would have been normal. So for her to be an unmarried woman at 30 is quite strange. So yeah, there's all these questions. I don't know if that's answered your question, but I don't know an awful lot, I would say, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But I'm interested.
When you lost your dad at 17, do you remember grieving, or if it affected you in any way?
Well, that is a really good question. It is possible, because I remember taking my exams and things not long afterwards. But at the time, my memory now of that time was that I did not grieve that much, that I was more angry than grieving, that I was hurt that he chose alcohol and drinking over staying with me and my family.
Yeah.
And because I was young, I meant really me, not my family. It's only you're a 17-year-old girl. It's all about you. And I was angry with him for leaving me. I was angry with him for not caring enough to stop drinking and stay. I mean, I was really naive. And I remember not feeling anything but those kind of negative emotions and almost not being able to cope with my mother's grief because I was so torn up and hurt and angry in my own kind of, just this whirlwind of negative emotion, anger and all, which I understand is also part of grief. And that went on for like 2 years. I was so angry with him. And then, did I talk about this when I had to go back and pack up my mum's house?
No.
So she moved house 2 years after he died, and she said, "Can you come and help me with his stuff?" And so I remember walking into their bedroom and opening the wardrobe, and she had not moved or touched anything of his. And he had all his suits and shirts and ties, because that's what everybody wore back then, to work. And as soon as I opened the wardrobe, the smell of him just came out. And it was this smell of tobacco and whiskey and just whatever aftershave he wore, I don't know. And smells are incredibly powerful. Like, they really are. And
I smell my grandma's old coat and it still smells like her after 5 years.
Yeah, I know. And that smell, any smell, a particular perfume or aftershave or something, it really, apparently it
Triggers.
activates all of the memory part of your brain. And so that's what happened. I opened up this thing, and then I remember I had bin bags, and I was trying to stuff all these clothes into these bin bags. And just crying and crying and crying, and ending up lying on the floor crying, dramatically covered in his clothes and ties and all of that sort of thing. And having this humongous moment of true grief and sadness and just, yeah. And I like to think when I look back, and I have no idea if this is true because our memories are so warped when you're young, and how they change, like it's like a Chinese whispers of memories.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I think that I made my peace with him on the floor in that bedroom, surrounded by his clothes. And when I left, I felt much lighter. And I felt that he was with me in some way, and that he would understand how angry I was and why it took me so long to cry.
Yeah.
And we create these thoughts that make us feel better. And that was the thought that made me feel better, whether it was true or not true. I chose to believe that he was at peace, and that he was at peace with me, and I was at peace with him. And
do you find this, like, I don't know if you did this, but like after my because we were so close, me and my grandma, like after she passed, I used to say, like, "Oh, I miss you, Grandma." And I even say it now sometimes, and even though they're not there, like, it's not like you're speaking to them, but it kind of feels like, and you're like, "Why am I doing this? It's a bit weird." But then, like, you can't, did you do that, like, when you're there?
Well, I probably didn't with my dad. I don't think that I was aware enough, and I don't think we were close enough for me to have that kind of reaction. But I do it with Lauren.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything weird or strange about it, because I truly believe their energy is all around us. And I think that we can tap into sometimes the energy of them being here. And I think they live on inside of us. So if you miss your grandmother, if something happens and you miss your grandmother, I don't think that talking to her, because maybe you're talking to her, to the part of her that exists within you. She will be there within you. And maybe when you're speaking to her, that's who you're speaking to, not just some random ghost or weird.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I'm like, I don't want to speak to any ghosts.
No. But, maybe her energy is out there somewhere. And that's what I think, And some people might think that that's strange. Some people might think that's very normal. And some people I know will think much more than that. They will genuinely feel like they can feel the presence of the people that they've lost. And I think whatever we feel, whatever makes us feel better, whatever allows us to cope, whatever allows us to kind of move forward, it's all good.
I was just going to ask about your grieving journey after your loss of Lauren in 2023. What has the process taught you? I know there's a lot, but
Well, that's a lot. And it's still an ongoing
of course
process. Let me please
I'm
first.
still grieving, and it's been 5 years, and I'm
Yeah.
like, when am I going to get over this? Like,
Well, you won't.
exactly.
You
I
love her. It's like that's like saying, well, when will I stop loving someone? You can't
Exactly.
stop
It's
loving
part
them.
of love, right?
It is a
means
massive
if
part.
you didn't
Yeah.
love them, you wouldn't be grieving so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I think that I've done a lot of reflecting about this because my grief journey has been complicated, especially at the beginning. And I said this last time, I lost a lot of things all at the same time, including Lauren. And so some of the grief that I maybe would normally have reserved for her was spread out, if there is such a thing, if we have an infinite amount of grief, or whether it's a specified amount, I don't know. But I had grief about so many things all at the same time, and it was extremely confusing and confronting. But the grief for Lauren it changes, and it morphs, and sometimes it's huge and seems incredibly overwhelming, and then sometimes it's just it's small and fragile, and sometimes I personally feel like it's shrouded in guilt, where I feel I'm not grieving enough for her, or maybe I should have cried. It's been a few days or weeks or whatever since I last cried, and there's that, because there is no right or wrong, and I have to keep reminding myself of that on a daily basis almost. But mine was made a little bit more complicated, but the fact that I have 2 children and who are both grieving for their sister in different ways. One of them, obviously her twin sister, and being a mother, that's what you have to do. You cannot dump your grief and feelings onto them. I found creative writing really, really helpful for getting through my grief, because yes, I talk to friends. I'm so blessed with incredible friends who heard all of my grief as it unfolded in all the different ways that it kind of manifested. But to be quite honest, there was so much more, and I did not know how to process everything that I felt, and also all the anger that I felt, and not just about what had happened to Lauren, but also the anger towards my ex-partner, who had basically let me down in the worst way possible, and hadn't been there for me when I was, grieving and at my most vulnerable. Even to the driver that hit Lauren, there was just all this anger and kind of pain, and I actually found that writing a story made it easier, because somehow it kind of removed it. Like, I was still writing about me, but I was writing it in the name of this character who was called Daisy. And Daisy, she really was a whiny little victim, because that's what my internal grief and my internal story was. But she allowed me to communicate and express and exhibit just all of those feelings I put into her and the novel and the characters. And I wrote 80,000 words in about 8 months. And it's not that great at all, but it was so therapeutic. Or whether I'm writing a piece that is based on my emotions. I actually brought along a piece to read.
Want to read it?
Yes, it is a bit
It's
sad.
Okay.
The reason I wrote this was because one of the things I found was I loved going to the beach, and this is something that I have written based on that love of the beach and why I love to. And this is basically part of my memoir that I'm writing. So
Yeah.
I stand on the beach and contemplate the last 2 years of my life. Waves are all around me, inside and out. Heaving, rolling globs of grief and warm gratitude combine with the sandy, salty waves hitting the beach and the trickle of tears on my face. Today, the world is peaceful. No other footsteps in the sand, nothing but the symphony of the sea, but I do not feel alone. The clashing cymbals of the watery mass hitting the beach and the mournful resonance of the sea calling back its waters thrums like violent vibrations of a tightly wound bass drum. The sun tries to shine, but the clouds are low and full, and the air is thick with warm moisture and muted yellowness. The beach always does this to me, draws me out of my feelings and emotions, heightens them and makes me face them head on. I breathe in deeply. This is the only place I can really do this. It is like my body doesn't feel safe to take a deep breath, except at the beach. It confounds me as I can't swim, and the enormity and endlessness of the sea scares me. And yet, here it is. I feel safe to breathe. My breath seems to synchronize with the rhythm of the ocean, in and out, pain and release. Here my grief can run free, find its wild edge, scream silently across the miles of blueness, the disappearing sounds of my sadness floating up and away and drifting down, down as far as it is possible to go. This is where I feel closest to Lauren. I feel her here, or at least I imagine I do, her bright energy and unapologetic clarity. When I speak to her at the beach, I can feel her replies in the salty air all around me. Am I trying to find myself or lose myself? Or maybe just find a place to be? Ever since the accident, I have felt like I am in a washing machine. Sometimes I enjoy the rhythmically soft massage of warm water. It feels like watery happiness, warming gratitude, and peaks of sunlight through filmy voile curtains. But at times my tears are just under the surface, threatening to overflow, and the water keeps rushing in and I am powerless to stop it. The sudden violence of the rinse and spin cycles shake me from my imagined peace, suffocating, drowning, panic and fear. There is no breath here, no respite. It feels like it will never, ever end, and I don't think I can continue. I feel my heart wrenching and fighting, my lungs exerting themselves trying to push the stinging feelings from within. But slowly, gently, the grief settles and subsides. The warmth and calm return, and I can once again feel gratitude and happiness and love. Now, after the inevitability of time has had its way with me, my grief, having entered my life so suddenly like an over-eager acquaintance, is slowly becoming an old friend. The friend you don't speak to for ages, but when you do, it is like she has always been there, because she has. My old friend grief is never far away. Even when I am filled with joy or gratitude, I can still feel her arms wrapped around me or holding my hand, waiting for that song or that smell or that girl that looks like Lauren. I realize now that I have never really truly felt grief in my life or even really considered it, never thought about it in a way that really matters. Maybe in an intellectual way or in an empathetic way when faced with someone else's grief. I had viewed it as something that affected others. We all know at an intellectual level that we will die one day, but we don't feel it. And I had been blindly going through life, not thinking, not realizing that real loss was possible for me, not ever thinking it would ever frog march into my life and destroy everything that I thought was true. Not until the day my daughter died. Because to feel grief, you need to have lost, and losing a child is amongst the worst thing a parent can lose. And now, I believe that my grief is just Lauren reaching out to me, speaking to me, reminding me that she loves me and knows that she is love, and her language is now a rainbow, a blue sky, a hummingbird, or a butterfly.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I almost cried. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I have been doing to help myself to get through my my grief. Been writing a novel and a memoir, so
And it's often described as waves, grief. Like,
yeah. Did you feel like that with your grandmother?
I still feel like that. Like, it's so weird. You wake up, wait, they're gone? Like, it just felt like yesterday she was here, and it's been 5+ years. I'm like, this just was hard, because I was like, I wished, I had all this guilt. I was like, I should have, been there, cared for her. I was like in India with my daughter's dad, and that was a mess. But like,
Yeah.
and I just came back before COVID, and then COVID happened, and then she was like, in care.
Oh,
and,
that would have been hard.
And I was like, she didn't want me to see her, so like skinny and suffering. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a nightmare. That's what it feels like, hey? Like,
yeah, yes, and he can't wake up, and yeah. I said I did not believe that it would happen to me. I mean, I really didn't, and I cannot believe my naivety in terms of the knowledge that I have now. I just didn't go there in my mind to think that something like this would ever happen. That when it first happens, all there is the grief. But little by little, you rebuild your life around it, and and you find happiness and you find joy. And I've met someone since the last time I was on.
Yes,
here.
I wanted to ask about that as well. You said you have a partner, and I was like, oh,
yes, well, you don't miss much. Yes, I have met someone, and he's really, it's been life-changing, and he's been someone who has accepted that he basically knew from pretty much the beginning that what I had been through, and he accepts me with the waves as well as the happiness within me. I don't always feel I have to be on with him. I can feel, if I feel sad, I can feel sad, and he just totally holds space for me. I actually never knew what that meant. Like, you hear people saying about someone, oh, you've got to hold space for someone. And I was just like, what does that mean? But I know what that means now, because he does that. He allows me, he creates a space that's safe for me to have the feelings that I have. And to be the most real version of me that I can. And we have similar values in terms of our outlook on life and family, and he's fun, and he's brought back an element of joy into my life, which is unexpected. But it's been really, really good. And of course I have my lovely granddaughter, who is a joy every single day, but
she's cute.
Yeah, she is amazing. She is amazing. And that's the thing, I think, that all that time I said to you that I was trying to show other people that I was worthy, or that I was successful, or all of that kind of stuff. It seems so pointless now, because all I want is to have people around that love me and that I love, and to do things that are meaningful with good people, to have joy in my life. Those things are the things that are so important now. And anything that I do in terms of work, the writing that I do, the time I spend with my granddaughter and my daughter and my son when he's in town, and my partner, and getting to know, his family, and all of those things, and meeting new friends, all of those things, those connections, those points where you learn something about somebody else, they have just become so much more important to me than all the things I used to think were important. And it's just, you don't think that at the age of 58 you're going to change so dramatically, but I have, and I'm actually quite grateful for it.
So do those things still matter to you, like climbing the ladder of success, or do they, they're still important, but they're not, like they've taken a kind of back?
I think, of course, I want to be successful. I guess my definition of success is slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do things that have meaning, and some of the I've done some charity work with. Last year, I helped on the Christchurch Country Fete, which was a community event, and that was so great to be a part of something like that, and to help, to make that happen, and use the skills that I've got to help make that happen. That was wonderful. And then this year I'm basically dealing with a charity called the India New Zealand Sporting
that's cool.
Charitable Trust, and where the plan is that they want to bring over a group of underprivileged kids from India, and also take some children from Christchurch and do an exchange, which is based around rugby. It's being led by Norm Maxwell, the former All Black, and the CEO of a tour company called Total Sports Tours, a guy called Phil Robson. And these guys are just so passionate about using sport for good, for helping kids to be the best that they can be, to experience joy, to truly see the world and to see the bigger picture, and to be compassionate about other cultures, and to try and overcome this, that there's a underbelly, unfortunately, of racism, and by trying to help these kids to actually teach them and educate them that there are different ways of being and different cultures in the world. And that's something that I'm involved in and really enjoying.
I wanted to ask, how did you meet your partner, and do you still attract the same guys that you once did before, you've been through this whole...
I would say that I'm not really sure that I was attracting anybody after all this happened. I don't think that I was particularly, I thought I was open to it, but I really wasn't. And I also have become, and I don't know if this is, I seriously don't know if this is because of my age or because of menopause or because of what I went through, my trauma, but I have no patience. Like, I have no tolerance for idiots. I really don't. And so, it was like, if I was on a dating app or something, I just had no patience. It was just, it was painful. So I had come off any dating apps or anything like that. My partner was introduced to me through a friend.
That's cool.
And we all say, oh my gosh, I wish I could meet someone the old-fashioned way.
I love that.
And that's what happened. Yeah. So this friend of mine said, do you want to meet this friend of mine? And I was just like, oh God, it can't be any worse than the people I'm meeting on these apps. So yeah, why not? And it was not a love at first sight thing. It was not.
Interesting.
In fact, there was about 3 or 4 weeks between the first date and the second date. But I think, I knew he was a good guy. That much was incredibly clear. And on the second date, I actually told him about Lauren, and he told me about some of his things that had happened that were important to him in his life. And we just connected. I won't say we connected over our traumas. I think it was quite the opposite. I think what we'd connected over was that we had both had crap happen to us, but we were resilient and we were strong and we had the same outlook on life. We were both wanting to grow as people. We both wanted to do something that was meaningful. And I think that's what it, came out of.
Did you sync this time?
Yeah. And on the second date, there was a total change in chemistry, total change in connection. We've kind of been together ever since. So it's been, but everything has felt very natural and beautiful. And I hope, my friends will say to me, it gives me hope that I might meet someone the normal way. And yes, there are people out there. Yeah, you just have a little bit of luck and a bit of hope and being open, I suppose.
I'm not against dating apps and all that, but in a way I am, because they're just so frustrating. I hate them. I like the old-fashioned way. It's so much more you feel like you can be yourself and they know who you are straight away. You just kind of click if you like each other and as friends or whatever, and then you just kind of know from that.
I think the issue with the dating apps is, and I used to write a dating column in a magazine at one point, but I think the dating apps creates there's too much choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And people just don't want to commit. It doesn't encourage commitment, because then you might go, well, I don't want to commit to that one because there might be another one that would be better for me, instead of going, I actually really like this guy and I'd like to commit to that to see where this could go, or the other way around, a guy saying, yes, there's something amazing about that woman and I'd like to get to know her better. It's almost like, well, yeah, I could get to know her better, but what happens if there's actually someone better around the corner or on the next swipe? So I don't think that's very healthy, so I am very glad to not be in that situation anymore. But I have lots of friends that are. When I look at 2023, I would say that it started with the closure of my restaurant. And, that restaurant, Maison de Crepe, had been like my baby. I'd had it for 8 years. So many wonderful people came into my life, whether they were staff or the many customers that we had.
Yeah, they were lovely staff.
Yeah, the staff were fantastic and the regulars were amazing. And we had beautiful, just amazing celebrations of joy and, birthdays and anniversaries and people graduating and just lots of wonderful things that happen within that business. And, we won awards and we just had so much joy that came out of it. But it was also incredibly hard work. And when COVID came along, it's just one of those things where you just go, something that you have no control over can come in and steamroller over your life. And unfortunately, I just did not have the funds to get through that. You needed deep pockets to get through COVID. And I take my hat off to all the businesses that survived and have grown and done well. But I know that they would have had to reinvest into their businesses in order to do that. And I just couldn't. And actually, when I closed the doors on the business, I basically had lost everything. So it's almost like the business was the first notch of grief in that year because I was so sad about it closing. Even though I found jobs, or the jobs were found for all of the staff, not one of them didn't get a job. It was so hard saying goodbye to that family, and to the customers that had been so loyal, and facing that failure. For me, facing that failure of that business not surviving was very difficult. And then 2 months later, Lauren had the accident. And so I was already at quite a weak point. I was already grieving. I think I also knew that my relationship was on its last legs at that stage. And so, the year itself was started with the restaurant and just ended with everything kind of disappearing out from under me. And
did it affect your confidence, like your identity, your worth?
Absolutely. I mean, confidence for sure. And I'm still in the process of rebuilding that. And, I think, yes, identity definitely. Worth. I don't think I felt worth any less, but I've always felt like I know my own worth. I think that's something that I've been quite strong on. But definitely my identity has changed. I don't think I know I'm not the same person that I was before all of this happened. I am a completely different
And I met you
person.
before then, right?
Yeah.
I was speaking to you in the lounge there.
Yes.
Yeah, with your dog.
Yes, and my dog Alfie, so I had to put him down like 3 months after Lauren died. Oh my God. I just look back and go, oh, what didn't happen? What didn't happen, in that year? In fact, I've been asked to speak at the Inspire Me Women's Conference, which takes place on the 2nd of October. And I'm been asked to speak about resilience and what happened to me in that year and how on earth I got through it. And I still look back with surprise that I actually did. I will say that I believe that all of those things that all of those things that happened to me, all of the ways that the rug was pulled out from under me apart from Lauren, all of those things needed to go. I look back and I can see, and not talking about Lauren, those things that I felt had been taken away from me, though I think I was released from all of those things that weren't serving me, but that I just did not have the foresight to see or the guts to change. It was all changed for me. I don't think you can change as much as I've changed in the last couple of years. But the interesting part of my journey and change is the fact that I can't really watch or read really ugly things. Like, I don't like true crime. It kind of triggers me, actually, about everything that happened. So 2023, 2024, when I wrote the novel that will never see the light of day, which I call my therapy, it was my reason to get up. I literally got up and got ready and had my breakfast, and then I would sit down at the computer every day like I was some days I would write for 7 or 8 hours. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Thank you for listening to Voices Unhindered. It's great hearing from my listeners. Reach out with questions and comments through Insta or Facebook. Just search for Voices Unhindered. I'm interested to know what other topics and voices you'd like me to bring on the show. Subscribe to Voices Unhindered on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to never miss an episode.